2025 is the year of physical media, so let's talk about books. This is my first ever book video, guys, and I wanted to run you through my 2025 reading list. This is just going to be a start. Some of the things I've actually already read in 2025 and a few things that I definitely want to read this year, and this will open up the floor for you guys to see what kind of books I like, and if you like the same things, you can recommend some more for me, and maybe we can keep doing these kinds of book videos, trying to single-handedly combat the rise of anti-intellectualism, because it is a scary world we live in, and I want to read the words of these amazing majority, like 99.99% female authors, to gain a greater understanding of the world that we're living in and to become a more well-rounded human and female, if that makes sense. Sorry, I'm sitting on the ground. I've literally got my camera plugged in because it's on charge, and this is going to be an unserious video because this is my first time ever speaking about books properly online, and I want this to be a safe space. All of my thoughts on these books are going to be very personal takes, but I think that's honestly good. I think these books should be open to people of all kinds of levels of reading and knowledge and abilities. A really good book is not just for a really good reader or writer. Like, I think we should all be reading great books. So without further ado, let's just get into it. I did just want to note before we get started some of my favorite book influencers or book clubs for you guys to follow. The first one is Endless Book Club, that I actually heard about through one of my favorite YouTubers on here, Sharon or Cheddon. And yeah, Endless Book Club is the most amazing, gorgeous, curated Instagram page. All of the books are kind of similar, a vibe to the ones that I'm showing you today. I love the way she picks out little quotes from a collection of books on a theme. I just love seeing these books through her eyes. The other one is Big Book Lady, Lauren Louise. You guys have to follow her here on YouTube. Her content is, again, just so amazing and cozy. And then on YouTube, I've been following Grandpa's Book Club, and he's from Australia, and he also has an amazing collection. So I've been kind of getting some recommendations from all three of these people. And I think it would be remiss of me to not mention Moya as well. I think we all get some amazing book recommendations from her too. So I'm currently in Sydney, and this is everything that I have of my 2025 reading list, because I've just gone on a book buying spree while I'm here, and I've also been on a book reading spree. So I've actually read almost all of these books already. I thought we would start by going through the books that I have already read in 2025 and tell you guys my thoughts. Let's start with Rachel Cusk. Now, you guys might have heard of her before, or you would have seen some of her amazing book covers, and 2024 and the start of 2025 was the year that I really got into her work, and I started with the Outline series. I only have 2 of them here, the last 2, because they're the ones that I brought to finish here in Sydney. Now, if you're someone that doesn't necessarily need a plot-driven novel and you're really into books that explore the connection between humans, especially within the conversations that they have with one another, I think you would really love Rachel Cusk. And I love the way that she really tells her stories through conversation, and that's the whole premise of this Outline trilogy. You don't really get to learn a lot about the narrator. You really hear bits and pieces of her life and her story, and also her outlook on the world and on the people around her through the way that she perceives and listens to these conversations with people. Even though these books are basically just a collection of conversations, there have been so many quotes that I've wanted to highlight throughout these books. I've dog-eared some of them, so let me just read you one of them so you can get an idea of the vibe. But I love this one. Behind every man is his mother, who made so much fuss of him he will never recover from it, and will never understand why the rest of the world doesn't make the same fuss of him, particularly the woman who has replaced his mother and who he can neither trust nor forgive for replacing her. These men like nothing better than to have a child, because then the whole cycle is repeated and they feel comfortable. That is just one of many incredible quotes, and I gasped aloud when I was reading this final book, Kudos, so many times. I could go on and on about it, but I just love Rachel Cusk. So much so that I picked up another one of her books, Second Place, is about a woman that invites artists to her second place, or her and her husband's second place, second home, in a remote coastal landscape in Europe. I wait to see what A Different Story by Rachel Cusk is going to be like, and one that is contained in one small novel. This is one of the few that I haven't read yet. I'll keep you guys updated. Okay, so the next book is Things I Don't Want to Know by Deborah Levy, and I mentioned to you guys that I started reading this in my last video, and I absolutely devoured it. It only got better from where I last left off with you. This is a little trilogy of autobiographies. This is the first one. I don't think you have to read them in order, but each of them are a response to something. I think this one is a response to George Orwell's essay Why I Write, and I haven't read that yet. Maybe I should have read it before I started this, but I found it really interesting that throughout this book, Levy explores the idea that she writes to get down the things that she doesn't want to know, or rather, when she writes, the things that she doesn't want to know come out. And this book is about her struggles with, her past, and how writing was the beginning of getting down these traumatic facts and these traumatic experiences, the things that she doesn't want to know, in order to make sense of her life and what she's living through, and again, her experience as a woman. I really relate to that fact because often as I'm journaling, and I'm sure if you guys journal, you'll know that when you're doing stream of consciousness writing, you're doing your daily pages, these kinds of repressed feelings and memories come out onto the page, and you realize once you take a step back that what you've got out on the page are all of the things that you didn't want to consciously be aware of as you're going about your day. And while that is a very painful process, it's also a necessary one. Yeah, the first part of this book was very interesting to me. I definitely highlighted some quotes about womanhood and motherhood that I found very validating. And then the next part of the book, the majority of this book, is about her childhood growing up in apartheid South Africa. I highly recommend this. I can't wait to pick up the other two. Another book that I finished and devoured that I mentioned in my last video was Simple Passion by Annie Ernaux, and this is my first ever Annie Ernaux. I heard about her works from Moya, and I'm not going to lie, a lot of these books I fell in love with the cover. I will eat this up. This is my favorite kind of graphic design. Obviously, when I looked into her work, I realized this is something I'm going to be interested in. So basically, this tiny little book documents Annie's relationship or her affair with a younger married man, a Soviet, in her late 40s. I read this book in one sitting right before I was about to go to bed, and I honestly think that's the perfect time to devour a book like this, and I don't think you can put this book down because you get to experience the intensity of her entire affair if you devour this book in one go. Like I said in my last video, this book is for the girlies that have never gotten over anything in their life, that they can remember every single detail of everyone that they have been so obsessively connected to. It kind of scares me in a way how much I related to this, because I often think of my obsession and sentimentality over my relationships with people as something that will go away as I get older. Maybe it will, but it's interesting that Annie is someone that has kept that sentimentality, that has been able to create art out of her passion and her obsession and her love of beauty and romance. I think I relate to it so much because I'm also someone that needs to make sense of the things that have happened in my life, of the people that I know in my life, through writing or through art or just through something beautiful, and that's what she talks about in this book. If you haven't read one of her works before, I definitely recommend starting with this. If you loved this and you can't get enough of it, then you should read this, which is Getting Lost. Just a fair warning, this is intense. This is basically a collection of all of her journal entries every single day, of right when she met the man she was having an affair with to the end of the affairs, the eventual demise. This was written down word for word, nothing was changed. It basically is just reading someone's diary. In a similar way to when I read Simple Passion, I also read this in almost one sitting. One day when I was having a frenzy of sitting in front of my laptop trying to upload my last YouTube video for 8 hours. I couldn't use the internet. All I could do was read. I was just absorbed by this book. So happy that her work and her words on female sensuality and sexuality, especially at an older age, that the world is recognizing that is an important voice. I think she is an incredibly important voice. When I was researching her, I also found out that something that she has been most vocal of her support in is Palestine over many, many years. So yeah, it feels good to me to support an author that supports causes that I care about too. The last thing I'll say about Ernaux, I could talk about her for ages because I truly feel like we're such kindred spirits, is that we share the same birthday, both September 1st Virgos, and I feel like I understand now why she's so obsessive over these men and these experiences in her life. Can just understand her desperation and the way she analyzes every single tiny moment of her connection with these men. Not to let in too much about myself, but yeah. The next book on my list for 2025 is Slouching Towards Bethlehem by Joan Didion, and actually just any Joan Didion, because I've never read her before. Like I mentioned, I've read pretty much every Eve Babbitt's. Last year I was obsessed with Slow Days, Fast Company, and with the release of the new Didion and Babbitt's book, I thought, well, I can't believe I haven't read Joan Didion yet. So this is the one that people recommend starting with. It's a collection of essays about her life in California and LA and her experiences of that in the 60s. And I absolutely love the way that both her and Babbitt's write about LA part of the way through this book, and I'm enjoying it so far. It's very different to the other books that I've been reading, so it's been a little bit hard to get into this style, but I can't wait to read more. And next on my list is definitely My Year of Magical Thinking, or The Year of Magical Thinking. I've been waiting to read that book because a very serious topic. It's about a period in her life where she lost two people most important to her, and as someone that has experienced loss like that, I have to go into books like that prepared. When I'm feeling up to it, I definitely want to read that next. And the last book on my list that I have here in front of me is this book called Background for Love by Helen Wolf. And my auntie had this in her home, and I had seen it at a bookstore because, again, I was drawn to the cover. I was like, okay, that's giving European summer, and the story looks incredible. It's about this woman and this man that have escaped the rising fascism of 1930s Berlin for a summer vacation on the Côte d'Azur. But their harmony soon falters, and the woman decides she must leave in search of a cottage of her own near Saint-Tropez. I think this is going to be for me. I'm hoping it's good. I don't know if you guys have read this. Again, it just seems like a nice summer read. Okay, so I do have a few things that I don't have here that I want to go out and buy immediately to get into for 2025, but I really want to read Sheila Hady, specifically Motherhood. This book explores what it means to be a mother. I saw a review that said this book is less about an exploration into the journey of childlessness, but rather enlightenment, and that really stuck with me. I feel like I'm currently on this journey as a 26-year-old woman, you know, starting to tell people that I don't want to get married and I don't want to have kids, but I can still be, you know, a fulfilled, rounded, whole, successful female woman without that, and I can be in a relationship and not want to get married. I just find it so validating and liberating to hear these kinds of stories, and I feel it's my duty for, you know, the women that came before me who maybe didn't have the same choice to not become a mother. I think it's important that I keep hearing and uplifting these kinds of women's stories. The last two books that I've got on my list are poetry. Again, something that I'm not necessarily into reading every single day, but I think it's such a beautiful thing to incorporate into your daily life. I know definitely that poetry makes me look at the world differently. It makes me think of the world as a more beautiful place. I mean, it depends what kinds of poems you're reading, but songs and music and lyrics are poetry, so I think it's good to read it too. I've got Bluets by Maggie Nelson on my list, which apparently People describe it as like a lyric essay / poems and prose, but she basically explores her experiences with the colour blue throughout this book. A lot of people talk about that book, so I want to see what all the hype is about. Second one is Devotions by Mary Oliver. Now, I'm sure you've all seen a Mary Oliver quote, knowingly or not. This kind of poetry is very digestible, I would say. It's not something that you have to read between the lines. It is what it says, but what it says is good, it hits. I'd be interested in just having that book on hand home to sort of flip through on days when I need just that extra bit of inspiration and courage, and yeah, just another way of seeing the world. So that's everything, guys. That is my list of books for 2025. I am a fast reader when I have the time to. I love just devouring books, and I want to make time every day when I get back home to Adelaide to reading more, to going out to read, reading before bed, etc. Like I said, I would love to hear what books you guys have got on your list for 2025, and if you're someone with a similar reading taste to me, let me know what you would recommend. I also read tons of books last year and in years previous when I've gone on holiday. That's usually the time that I really read a lot, and then I don't read at all throughout the year. So I have lots of other recommendations for you guys. Maybe in future videos we can talk about those, and let me know if you like this kind of video from me. It makes me kind of nervous because I feel a little bit like an imposter, but who cares? I enjoy books, and even though I might not know exactly how to talk about them, I just want to put it out there. I don't know. Here's to more physical media in 2025. I'm so excited. Happy reading, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.